So this is in Natal, so it's a whole different state. I was training again. It was an American this time. We'd already been together for a little bit by this point. And so it was one day we were just like making straight contacts. And so actually in our mission, because in Brazil and especially in the Northeast, they generally have a problem of not having enough priesthood. So our mission president had a big push of we were supposed to find so we already had been originally supposed to find 10 new investigators a week, but 8 of them had to be men. It's like over 18 men. And so when we would be contacting, we did a lot more contacting than we did like door-to-door tracting. We would basically always talk to men. So one day we were talking to a man and we just found him on the street. He was just walking somewhere and we stopped him and we just talked to him really quick and we asked if we could come over to his house and he was like, all right. And he actually told us that it came out that he'd actually been baptized before when he was younger, but he wasn't going to church anymore, which is actually really common. That sometimes there's a lot of less actives in Brazil, especially in my area, that sometimes missionaries baptize, especially younger kids and stuff, and then they don't stay active very long. So he was like that. He'd gotten baptized when he was 12. And he'd actually been active for about a year, which is actually pretty impressive, but then hadn't gone since. But he told us we could stop by. And so I kind of at that point was further along my mission, and I had a bad habit of like assuming that Brazilians would flake out on me because they did a lot of the time. So I didn't always stick with appointments because they didn't, kind of a thing. It was a bad habit. But I would kind of like, generally I'd be like, so they're going to generally home in the afternoon, so I might not come exactly on that day that we planned, but I'll come the next day and that time, and they'll probably be there at that time anyway. And they might not even remember that they made this appointment in the first place. And so I kind of did that with him. It was really bad because he actually remembered. And so I came the next day after our appointment at the same time, and he was like, oh, I swear you guys had plans for the day, and I was here waiting, and I was like, and I felt terrible, and I was like, never again, never doing that ever again. And this rarely happened. Rarely did anybody even remember that we'd marked something. So I was so surprised, and I was like, oh my gosh. And then, so he'd remembered, and he'd been waiting for us, and he was a very open and honest person, which actually so Brazilians, not that they're dishonest, but they're just very nice, and they never want to say anything that they think is not like what you'll want to hear, kind of. So that's part of the problem, is a lot of times they'll be like, I'll totally go to church, like, yeah, of course I'll do whatever, and then not actually mean it. So what was really nice about him was that he was very open, and he would say, when he said, okay, I'm going to go to church, he actually intended to go to church, and he went to church. And he was like, okay, I'll read it, and he did it. But he also would be very open about like, I don't know if I believe in God, and I don't know about these things. And so it was really fun and really interesting to work with him because he was so open and honest about everything. And it was so because he was very different from other people that I worked with, he was one of the few times where I could see a very clear transition of him being like, I'm not sure if I believe in God, to eventually praying and feeling something when he did, and getting something out of the scriptures. And especially because a lot of Brazilians have a lot of faith and really believe in God, and that's very easy for them. So it was a different experience for me of having to go from him not really believing in it to kind of being more open to it. And he actually went to General Conference with us and really enjoyed President Monson's $5 story and stuff. And he, at one point, was very open. He was like, I really like you guys. I don't know if it wasn't you guys, if I would still want to go to church. And we were like, no. We started bringing over lots of members and stuff. And like, it was really sad with him is that both me and my companion actually got taken out of that area. Like we weren't expecting to, but got taken out at the same time, kind of by surprise. So I don't know what went down with him, but I know when we left that he was getting to know the members and actually coming to things and reading and praying and feeling something. And it was really great because that is what needs to happen in Brazil more than anything. They have a lot of members, and sometimes it's easy to get an easy baptism, but it's finding these people that just have fallen by the wayside and really helping them develop a testimony that which maybe they didn't do when they actually got baptized when they were just a kid, you know. So that is like, I really enjoyed that experience because I felt like that was something that needs to happen in Brazil a lot, and maybe even that the mission should focus on more. So it was a really good experience just to kind of see him remember what he'd learned before and grow it back into a testimony.